Godfather, say when ready for situation update.
Godfather ready. Send it.
Be advised, currently Team Black on water, food, green on ammo. Break. Reaper team has been engaged by enemy drone. Currently defending at strong point labeled Alpha 4. Friendly grid is as follows. 1-8 Sierra Victor Gamma 392-482. Reaper team requesting immediate extract. Team likely fully compromised.
Godfather copies friendly grid for strong point Alpha. Move to extract point X-ray Victor 01. Friendly armor in area. 1 APC will conduct pickup.
Reaper copies.
Reaper team, be advised on your route is an abandoned trench system. Proceed with caution. Known enemy elements are in the area conducting sweeping patrols.
Reaper copies all. Reaper team out.
Reaper 6-1 to Godfather. I have visual on 2 hostiles patrolling the trench system.
Reaper 6-1, we copy you. You're clear to engage. Good luck.
Hey, we gotta go! Get out, man, hey! Do you copy?
Reaper 6-2, we copy you. Send traffic.
Reaper 6-1 is KIA. I'm making my way to extraction. I'm wounded. I say again, I'm wounded.
Godfather copies all. See you soon.
Schofield, bring up the jammer.
Come on. Up you get.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out the second episode of the drone series, and special thanks to Altavision. He is responsible for other cinematic shorts that have happened on Barrel and Hatchet. Really good friend of mine, incredible cinematographer, and he has a lot of different pieces of work he's pushed out over YouTube, so make sure you go support him and check out his work. Today we're going to be doing the second episode of the drone series, and this one's going to focus on armament and anti-drone capabilities. Before we get started, make sure you hit the like and the subscribe button. Also, make sure you share this episode with a friend. And if you haven't seen it already, go check out the first episode of the drone series that we did that actually has the first half of that cinematic short that was done by Steven over at Altavision. So today we have a lot of stuff to cover, and I want to start off with a disclaimer. So a company named Genesis Arms, you guys may have heard of them, they have created this shotgun, and they actually sent out this shotgun for this series specifically. So this was sent to me, and I'm going to talk about what my experience was with the shotgun and how, honestly, I think it could be used as a very viable tool, not just for drone work and anti-drone stuff, but also many other different types of roles. So I want to talk about specifically drone team weapon loadout. So like, what is every drone operator carrying within a drone team? If we had a 2-man team or a 3-man team, what would that look like? At least what I think it would look like. And then also, we're gonna go into the Genesis Arms PDS12 shotgun. I'm gonna talk about the specs on this thing, and then also my experiences and everything in depth about this system. Very, very capable system, and a lot to cover on this bad boy. Then we're going to go into a drone experiment that I actually did with my friend Dallas, who was on another episode before. I did a rate my build with him. He had the 12.5 mid-length gas with an ACOG, so make sure you go check out that episode. It was a few episodes back, but really good episode, and Dallas has been a good friend of mine for many years, and we've been shooting together for quite a while, so make sure you go check that video out. And then after we do that, there was actually a skeet shoot that I did with Dion, who is the Director of Operations over at Element Training Complex, and we got some nuggets of wisdom from one of the old timers that actually was talking about different different skeet shooting techniques. And if you're trying to prepare in a limited capacity for being able to shoot down drones or moving targets, skeet shooting is definitely something to start thinking about. A lot of guys that shoot in that skeet world or that clay pigeon world have a ton of experience on shooting movers. And in fact, there are some really renowned tier 1 units that when they're trying to work moving targets, they'll actually go shoot clays. So definitely a huge training tool and something that you should consider maybe getting into, even if you're running just a pump shotgun or whatever, or you can get like a, one to do competitions and do games with, but get a shotgun that you will typically run for a counter UAS role and see how well you can do with that shotgun. After that, I went into a really good and deep conversation with Ascend ISR, who was in the first drone episode. And Eric over there, he makes like counter thermal coverings for different drones. Really cool stuff that they're doing over there, but we have a very in-depth discussion about all things encompassing counter UAS and armament. Let's go ahead and jump into the specs on this bad boy, the PDS12. So the PDS12, like I said before in a disclaimer, this thing was sent to me by Genesis Arms. Really cool guys over there. They are doing some incredible things. And you guys may have seen this type of shotgun, in a very familiar movie. It was in the John Wick series and is kind of making a name for itself on its own, specifically because of the performance. So starting off with the very first thing, which is the price. This is probably the only thing that is going to be a big barrier for entry for a lot of people, and the price point is very steep. Now, in terms of capability and what you're getting, in my opinion, I think it's worth that. However, it's definitely not something that you just kind of drop some coin on. So if you think about it outside of just a regular shotgun that you would use, shooting clays or just home defense, look at it in a multi-spectral role, then it starts to kind of make sense. However, it does have a very steep price point. And the price point for this MSRP is $49.99, which is, $5,000. Plus you have your tax stamp for the Ventum from Huxworks that comes with the PDS12. You can buy them separately, but if you get this entire package as seen, you got to pay the $200 tax stamp on this and then the $200 tax stamp on the short-barreled shotgun. However, it is not without merit in terms of it commands a steep price point, but after running this, I kind of get it, right? So as far as the price point, the quality and the build quality on this thing is very nice. The tolerances, everything is put together very well. I shot over 1,000 shells through this thing, got it back, actually I would say end of October of last year, and put a lot of shells through this thing, over 1,000 shells between, slugs. I ran self-defense rounds, number 8 shot, number 7.5, all 2 3/4 is what this runs. And it just ate up everything. Walmart white box, trashy Winchester loads, like it ran everything, and it did not ever have a malfunction. The only types of maybe a failure to feed was a user error because I didn't properly lube this. And actually, when it comes to shotguns, specifically semi-automatic shotguns, lubricant is your best friend, especially when you're running a suppressor. So as far as reliability, my good friend Henry over at 9-Hole Reviews always says in their videos that you can train on performance, you can train on becoming faster at the fundamentals, you can train on tactics. However, the one thing that you can't control is reliability. And so with the Genesis Arms PDS12, it was extremely reliable. Now, if you have semi-automatic shotguns in this type of pattern, usually they're coming from Turkey. And for guys who are, gun shop owners or work in the industry, the reputation for those types of systems. They're very cheap. You can buy them, like usually people buy 2 or 3 at a time. They're like $300 for an AR style semi-automatic shotgun, and they are that cheap for a reason. They literally choke up all the time. They're constantly malfunctioning. It's more of a novelty item than an actual tool. This thing it was insanely reliable. Like I had my doubts, I'm not gonna lie. I thought it was kind of one of those, a novelty item just because AR pattern style semi-automatic shotguns have known to be plagued with problems, known to be extremely unreliable. And so I didn't really have expectations at all. In fact, my expectations were based off of what I had experienced in the past, which was cheap Turkish-made shotguns. And this blew it out of the water, no pun intended. The reliability was insane. I couldn't believe it. As long as I kept it lubed, it just kept running, which as far as a counter-drone operator weapon system, that is something that you absolutely have to have as #1 on your priority list when it comes to your shotgun. Especially if you're shooting a drone, which in Ukraine, they're saying that those drones on average, the Russians and the Ukrainian ones are average going 70 to 90 miles an hour. And they're changing directions. And if it's coming at you and this is your last line of defense, this is your final like last stand, this is what you got, wouldn't you want a shotgun if you had the last few seconds left to live on this planet? And also, wouldn't you want a shotgun that has a high rate of fire, that is extremely reliable, where you don't have to second guess if it's gonna go off or not? When it comes to those last few seconds, reliability is absolutely paramount. And so this is where, you know, the price point is steep, yes. However, you can start to see why it commands such a high price point because of the amount of time, the QC, the finish, the fit, the reliability, all of it going into this is pretty significant. Huxworks actually worked with Genesis Arms and made the Ventum 12K for this system specifically, and they actually just released at SHOT Show saying that they will also be selling the Ventum 12K separately. Originally, this was all one system, so if you bought this, it had to come with a suppressor. Now, as far as the barrel length, this thing is extremely tiny. So it has a 5-inch barrel. It does have a 20-inch overall length. If you have the suppressor, then it becomes a 26-inch weapon system. It obviously compacts to a very small package. If you're trying to run this as not just counter drone, but also you're using it as a breacher. You have a breaching shotgun. If you've seen like military guys that are running breaching shotguns or law enforcement SWAT teams, they usually have a small, tiny shotgun to be able to stow away on their kit. They bust it out, use it to breach that door or breach whatever they got to breach, and they stow it back away. So having the ability to make something that's really small is absolutely paramount, and that is something that Genesis Arms was really trying to achieve, was performance in a very small package along with reliability. So you can extend this tube buttstock all the way out. It does have a limb saver type of grip texture on the back. It does give you a workable length of pull. Now, as far as the way that this system works, it essentially is a short recoil operated system. It has it uses the inertia from the shotgun shell to be able to cycle that bolt and pick up another round out of the box magazine. What's great about this magazine is they come in 5-round and 10-round. And so these box magazines are also the same pattern as a AR-10 style magazine. So now, what was fascinating that we found out is like, holy smokes, I can just get AR-10 magazine pouches and now I can run it on my kit. I don't have to have some funky, you know, Velcro strip where I have to single load shotgun shells. I can just literally do put them in my box mag, load them in a standard AR-10 magazine pouch, and I'm good to go. So as far as compatibility with kit that's already out there that doesn't have to be specially designed around the shotgun system, very convenient. As far as the lower, it's also a Gen 1 DPMS 308 lower. The manual of arms is not going to change for most users. So you gotta think about this. As far as like shotguns, the manual of arms is completely different.
In there, shoot 2 shots.
We're just gonna pretend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shoot 2 shots, leave the pump back,
Yes.
turn, throw one in the chamber.
Yeah,
pump
Okay,
it
he
back.
won't do it, but here we go.
You ready?
Oh,
On your mark, get set, go.
ah. There was still 3 in there.
I told him he didn't have.
Here we go. Ben, are you ready?
Yeah.
On your mark, get set, go.
Got it, but not a ton of time.
Whether you're running a pump, whether you're running semi-automatic, you got to be able to load tube load it. Being able to have last round and throw one in there like a last round match saver type of shell that you have on the side. And there's just a lot of stuff you have to consider when working a shotgun. And if you're going to be using a shotgun, you're going to have to work at it. Like running that thing efficiently, knowing what type of loads that you have in the tube and memorizing those,
All right, so here we
having
go, get the
specific
Semi
loads
Express
on
through.
specific shell holders all over your kit. It's a lot. Like you definitely got to train it, especially if that's the role that you're going to assume for your team. What's great about this is the fact that it's just like an AR. Like you have your standard safety selector switch, got a standard mil-spec trigger, mag release is the same. There's even a bolt lock open, so a bolt release and a bolt lock. So you can work that. And the fact is there's no change to the manual of arms for running this system. So I can hand this off to anybody. They can have no shotgun experience. All they've done is run an AR, and now they can run this type of weapon system and honestly run it pretty effectively. So as far as the user ability for this, very low amount of training time needed to become proficient with this. The only thing you'd have to become proficient at is understanding the loads, what they do, and then you know, recoil control. But the other great thing about this is the fact that when it comes to a counter drone team, one of the things is you have a lot of counter drone teams in Europe that are running shotguns, but that is essentially that guy's primary role. He's running the shotgun, he's protecting the team from drones, and then he has obviously like an AK or whatever primary weapon system. So it's a backup weapon system for him. I would argue, especially if you have a big enough team, that this can be a primary weapon system for one of the people on the team. Now hear me out. I understand that that might be a little bit risky. However, there are already jobs in the military and in other, you know, armed organizations all over the world that will run something as a primary weapon system, that they like a sniper rifle, a machine gun. Back in the day, it used to be a grenadier, would just run an M79 grenade launcher. That would be their primary weapon system, and then they have a secondary weapon system, which was usually a pistol or some sort of sidearm. This, the reason why I say it would be able to fulfill that primary weapon system place is because it has the ability to change its role to whatever the situation needs. Because I can load, you know, drone loads or drone shotgun shells that are specialty, or maybe just like the specific bird load that I want to use for drones, in a box magazine. I have them at 5 round, or I can have them in 10 round, and I can just mark them like, hey, this is going to be the counter drone. I can have another one that's just straight slugs. This thing can shoot slugs out at 100 yards. Like if you get it zeroed, it will slay targets with slugs at 100 yards, which is pretty fascinating, especially considering the compact size on this thing. The other thing is you can have another magazine or set of magazines that's going to be for buckshot. So whether you're going to be clearing trenches, clearing buildings, using it as your breaching load, now just with a simple mag change, I can completely switch roles. I don't have to download the tube. I don't have to remember like, okay, what's my pattern? Do I have, you know, 2 slugs and then I got a number 8 and now I have buckshot behind that. And so all I got to do is just, all right, hey, I'm getting ready, swap it out, put in the new load for whatever the role is, and now I'm ready to rock. Having the ability to change out your shells really quickly just with a simple mag change kind of really opens up the box in terms of capability on this thing, especially if someone becomes good at it and their primary role is just your counter drone, but you're also the breacher. You're also going to be helping clear rooms. Like you can join in on the stack because you can just swap out and have maybe some buckshot or whatever. You can run right into the room with the rest of the stack. I mean, the sky's the limit. You guys can TTP or SOP however you guys want to. I'm just saying the capability is there. One of the other big strong points that I saw on this thing is the fact that the reloads on this are very quick. Like I said before, if you're running a shotgun, like a traditional semi-automatic or a pump style, you gotta work that thing to be able to run it efficiently and also have specific kind of tricks that you learn in classes and things of that nature to be able to keep that shotgun loaded and running. Because one thing that shotguns do is they love to eat shells and they eat them fast. And then you gotta work on that thing to be able to keep that thing topped off all the time. So with a simple mag change, just like you do with an AR, you can practice those. The bolt locks back to the rear, insert new mag and send that bolt home and you're ready to rock. So the amount of magazines you can carry, the amount of different loads and the types, sky's the limit, man. That's where this thing really shines, is it's so tiny, it's very capable for its size, and it's so easy to swap out what type of load you're gonna be running outside of the reliability aspect. Now, one of the things that is really, I think it kind of blew everybody's mind, is we were running different pump shotguns and semi-automatic shotguns and just kind of testing them side by side with this thing. And one thing that was consistent across the board that everybody was like, holy smokes, is, like I said, ran over 1,000 shells in this thing. You could shoot 100 shells in a day. Now, if you've run shotgun before, you know that like after you shoot like 30 or 40 shells, or you're running like a clay pigeon day or shooting at the ski range, you run 100 shells, you're done. Like your shoulder is done. Bruised, you're sore. This thing, you can run it all day long. We actually did run it all day long. Like this thing would just eat and eat and eat. and it would not hurt your shoulder. In fact, the recoil was extremely manageable. I would actually equate it to a 308, like that's about what it was. So the fact that you can run this thing fast, you can kind of keep that reticle on target in a general area. It's not, you're leaving your field of view and then coming back in. Like, you're able to control that reticle as you're shooting and be able to lead whatever it is that you're trying to hit. Especially if you're going to use this as a primary weapon system and you need to actually make shots with slugs or with buckshot on targets that you see within trenches or whatever. Very, very easy to do. So one of the things that I originally was like, I'm not sure if I'm gonna like this, was this Hogue grip. It's awesome. Like, the grip texture is great. The way that it swept back is great. Actually, I prefer a little bit swept back. I originally thought about doing a more straight up and down grip, but now that I've been running it for quite a while, I'm like, I actually like this exact angle and pitch for this gun. It helps especially with that recoil control and makes it a little bit more comfortable to shoot. One of the other caveats on this type of weapon system is the fact, though, that you do got to maintain your suppressor. So they do send you a tool where you have breaching teeth right here, so you can stick that inside of a door jamb and just send it. But you do get a tool that comes with your kit where you put it here and you can actually unscrew the end cap and then pull out the actual core for the Ventum. So that way you can take all the waddings and stuff like that out of it. Now, disclaimer, I've only cleaned it twice out of 1,000 shells. However, they recommend doing it every 100 or so, just to kind of maintain that weapon system. So kind of cleaning all that melted plastic out, all those waddings and little shavings of plastic, it's not a ton, but just a little bit out and all that carbon, it's good to continuously maintain this. The flow-through suppressor for this, I was like, it's kind of gimmicky. It literally takes the recoil out of it. Really sucks the recoil out of this thing and makes it very pleasurable to shoot and very, very efficient. Like, you could take someone who's not very good at shotgunning and they can run this thing. So as far as the different roles that this could fulfill, I mean, as far as a breacher for police departments, using it on the SWAT team, like, essentially it makes the shotgun relevant again. That's what's mind-blowing about this, and it would run. Like, I still can't get over the fact that this thing was just so reliable. Like, it just ran. And so when it came to being able to send multiple volleys, especially when I have a moving target, specifically like a drone or something of that nature, I want to have a high rate of fire, so that way when there's a drone coming at me, I can just throw up a lead net and a lead wall in the sky, and all I got to do is get one of those beads to be able to hit that propeller or disrupt the equilibrium of that drone and flip it over. That's all I need. I mean, now as far as the optics and what I got on here, I am running it on a Unity tactical riser as well as an EOTech EXPS3, and I do have an Enforced light on here. The reason why I like the Enforced light, it's very conducive for running it comfortably, being able to actuate that light. I didn't feel the need to have a laser on here. I mean, you could. I just wanted a light. Like, I feel like it's going to be close enough range where that's going to be something that I'm not going to use a laser per se. I can passively aim with this. That's not a big deal. Now, the one thing I will say as far as this tube stock, if you like to get a cheek weld, it's going to be not very comfortable for you running a cheek weld. However, if you have a high riser, which is what I recommend, I would run a high riser with a reflex optic. It's very comfortable with just like you shooting passive, or if you're running a high riser on all your other rifles, there's no change to business. So they do have different stocks that they do offer. So if you don't want the tube stock, I prefer it because of how small it gets and how tight of a package it can become. But if you want to have a different stock, you guys can, go check out Genesis Arms website and get a different style stock that fits your fancy. So if I'm going to be running, if I was king for a day and crap hit the fan and I had to assemble a drone team and I was going to be in charge of that, I would prefer to have probably 2 minimum, at a very minimum 2, or to 4-man team. I'd probably go with 3 because that's just a small enough size where I can, not have such a large footprint whenever I'm walking through the woods with the group. However, I am losing some guns, right? So for a drone team loadout specifically, I would probably have one of the guys carry the Genesis Arms PDS12, a short package shotgun, and he would have this as his primary weapon system. He'd carry probably a pistol, he would definitely carry a pistol, but he would also be the breacher, and have no problem filling in on the stack if we have to go into a room somewhere. So that way your shotgunner can literally breach the door and then get out of the way, the rest of the team goes in and he can follow in right behind him and still be ready to go. So I'd have one guy definitely outfitted with this. Then I would have another drone operator or assistant drone operator running just a standard 11.5 rifle, probably have the pilot running that, And so that way they can work stuff that's close, and then have the other guy, or the last remaining assistant drone operator, is running like a 14.5 or something of that nature with some sort of glass. So now between all three of you, you have your capability to breach, run counter drone, you can run a little bit of distance, get some SA, and then for whatever else that's further outside of the 14.5 range, you can just throw a drone up and go get SA on it. Having an 11.5 makes it a little bit more maneuverable for that one drone pilot, but you still have the capability to reach out and touch something, honestly, with the 11.5 and with the 14.5. So if you're used to training and working out at distance, you're very aware that you can shoot things to 300, 400, 500 yards with an 11.5 perfectly fine. It goes back to fundamentals and how much you train, but for those who go out and have the ability to shoot distance all the time, you very much well know this, right? And so there is this misconception that because I'm running an 11.5 and I only have a dot and a magnifier, that I can't go past 200 yards. It's fake news. You can stretch that thing out and just work the gun and know your holds and know how the gun works because you train with it all the time, that you can definitely reach out and touch some things. So not the argument to say that, okay, well, it's definitely going to put people down at 5. Sure, maybe it's not going to have a lot of energy behind it. However, you can do it, right? And that I still, even at 500 yards, don't want a 5.56 round coming out of 11.5 and hitting me. I personally wouldn't want that. So the Genesis Arms PDS12, absolutely fascinating, and you'll see as we do the experiments later throughout the rest of this video, we continue to talk about this thing and how well it runs, how fast it is. So now we're gonna go check out what me and Dallas did when we were doing some experiments with some remote control stuff that we were engaging to kind of see what the effects would be. And so we're gonna go ahead and go right into that right now.
So I wanna talk about a quick sponsor of the channel that allows this type of content to happen for free. It allows me to keep filming, allows me to keep going out to the range and making sure that I'm putting out quality content for you guys, and also being able to do it on a very regular basis. And that company is RENEWAL Rain. I've mentioned them before, I've talked about them quite a bit on the channel. They do have mineral water that is flavored. So this one is the Psalm Squeeze, which is lemon lime flavor. But this is a Christian company that is trying to push out a really good product. One, making sure that we're keeping in mind our health and making sure that we're putting good things into our temple or our body. The Bible says that we should make sure that we're always taking care of our temple and being very mindful about what we're putting into it. So they created a mineral water that is another option that's out there versus what you typically see out in the grocery stores. You can actually order RENEWAL Rain and use the discount code in the description of this video to be able to not only save money but also accrue points, so that way you can save money on future purchases. It's a really good beverage that I actually take with me to the range all the time, and also we drink it whenever we do our podcasts, and it's honestly really delicious. You can get also some merch and some stickers and apparel, but it's a great way to, and this is a company that does not shy away from their morals, and they are always putting out the gospel first with their branding and also with their beverage. So make sure you go check out this sponsor of the channel, RENEWAL Rain, save some money, pick up some great mineral water, and also special thanks to them for sponsoring this episode.
All right, so kind of like an overview of that experiment. We use obviously 7.5 load. These are just Walmart loads. Where did you get your double-aught buck from? Internet load. Yeah. But this is from
Something
Walmart.
cheap.
Winchester white box from Walmart, obviously 12 gauge. What are your thoughts overall?
So overall, I think it's easier to bring down a drone than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised.
It's not something you want to do, and obviously you don't want to be shooting at drones. But if you find yourself in that situation, it's something that you've prepared for it. It's something that you can do, and you can keep you and your team safe easier than I think.
To be honest, I got a lot of confidence from it.
Yeah,
like my confidence in the capability of the shotgun to be able to combat drones as a last resort is a lot higher. Like I was worried that it wouldn't do anything and I would only have like 20 yards or 15 yards to be able to engage this thing to get it out of the sky. Now, mind you, the one caveat to this is that these drones are a lot slower. Like only going what, 8 miles an hour, 10 miles?
Maybe, yeah.
FPVs are going to become like 80 to 90 miles an hour from what I was talking to with Dan. So, and honestly, they're probably a little bit bigger than this, but I was like, it doesn't take a lot. Like, you know, just disrupting the equilibrium, make the balance go out.
Yeah, pretty much once they get past the roll rate that they can recover from, they just auger into the ground.
Yeah. All right, so we got some hitting on the move. We got any damage, Dallas? This was 7.5.
Yeah, I mean, oh yeah, no.
Really?
This one we're gonna have to
Oh,
replace
wow,
rotors
look at
before
that.
she flies again.
Well,
I don't know if that was in the crash or if it was the shotgun.
Could have been both, but either way, there's gonna be damage as a result of the shotgun.
Yep.
So we've got, what, 30 yards, 7.5 shot, and we got some jacked up propellers, but either way.
I think one of the key takeaways from today is that you don't need to destroy the drone.
Right.
Right? When I was first starting this project and I was first thinking about it, I was really looking into heavy shot and like the smaller buckshots, the number 2, number 4 buckshots.
Right.
Because we're worried about penetration and messing up the motors or hitting the battery. But that's not the goal. The goal is just to stop the drone. All you got to do is get without the bounds of the gyroscope, and she crashes.
Just disrupt the equilibrium, essentially.
That's it.
Yeah. Dang. Yeah. So when we did 2 other ones, so we did obviously the static shots. The static shots were pretty easy. We did 55 is the furthest that we did. We did number 8 and number 7.5 out of the pump and the Genesis. The Genesis knocked it out of the air at 55. The pump, 14.5, knocked it out of the air at 55. So essentially it was just enough beads to be able to disrupt the equilibrium to flip it over. Didn't damage it per se. I think at 30s we started to notice some actual damage. It was just kind of superficial debris that just kind of disrupts its balance.
Sure.
So
by 35, we were putting pellets inside. You could shake it when you saw the damage on the battery on the other.
Right, destroyed the camera, stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah, so that's good to know. And I think it shows that if you're trying to be prepared, it doesn't take. Obviously, your Genesis is sweet. I love that gun.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take a whole lot to add something to your toolbox for this threat.
Right.
And it's definitely an emerging threat in the world, and it's an emerging threat in the United States. So a shotgun, pattern it, some loads, maybe a couple chokes to do, and then you rotate it in with your quarterly training. So once a quarter, you're out and blowing some sporting clays or remembering how everything works.
Right.
And you're going to be miles ahead of everybody else.
To put this in a more in a very realistic at-home perspective, the cartel has been authorized to engage border agents
100%.
and military. So we can assume as they've been labeled a terrorist organization and they start to ramp up attacks, not just against law enforcement and the military, but also to cause fear tactics by possibly engaging civilians. So this is a very real threat that's hitting close to home here in the US about the possibility of drones now being used in the country in terms of by the cartel as a tool of terror. And so having something, obviously got to follow the rules, FAA rules.
Absolutely.
Can't shoot an aircraft, right? So we were just having fun and experimenting with RC toys. But as far as the pump and the semi-auto, what are some things that you saw as far as a difference between pros versus one and pros with the other?
So on my end, I would say the semi-auto, and we discussed it a little bit on the range. It's great because you can swap mags, you can swap ammo, and you can swap mission sets very quickly. I likened it to the 300 Blackout early on, right? You can run a mag of subs and just swap your mag and your supers, and it's a different weapon. Right. So the box fed in Genesis is great for that. Also rate of fire. Obviously rate of fire is much faster. If you're not particularly great with a shotgun, so you might miss, follow-up shots are better. It's also smoother to shoot because it has the gas system.
Yeah.
The only downside to it, honestly, is the price of entry, right?
Yeah.
If you can afford it, get that. It's a great system, 100%.
Yeah.
No. So on the pump gun, obviously mine's a little cheaper. There's 2 tax stamps sitting here on the table, so factor that into the price.
What are you thinking for the speed test?
I'm thinking if I actually try to get the dot back on target and not just run it, 2 to 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Right, 2.5, 3 seconds, gonna be somewhere there. I'm not gonna run a shot timer, but it's gonna be something like that.
Yeah.
And I think the Genesis is gonna be, if not sub 1, then like 1, 2, 1, 3.
Yeah. I mean, how's also the recoil impulse that you're feeling that versus the Genesis?
The Genesis is lighter. I mean, obviously it's a slightly heavier gun.
Yeah.
And it's got the whole gas and it works lighter. I'm running a port on that shotgun.
Okay, nice.
So it's not as bad as it could be. But yeah, no, the Genesis, hands down, it's faster and easier to shoot.
All right, so we got Dallas is gonna do the fast rate test. You mark, get set, go.
There you go. And because I don't run a pump,
yeah,
I didn't count. I ran out of
right.
I ran out of where I was at. I have removable chokes in mine, So it takes me a little longer to change mission sets, but I can swap out. You know, if I know I'm doing, I have some time to think. I can swap chokes, I can swap ammo, and I can change mission sets.
Right.
I really built mine as a secondary weapon for somebody. That was, in my mind, when I was designing what I wanted to do and what we were going to do, it was either if you're in the vehicle and you're up in the turret on a turret gun, like this is in the turret with you, or if you're in a team, somebody in the team drops a pistol, doesn't carry a pistol and mags, and takes that weight in a shotgun that's maybe on a scabbard or somewhere that they can get quickly.
Right.
Like, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Whereas I think the Genesis is especially in a team, you can replace somebody's primary weapon with it, right?
Right.
That can be somebody's QRF or somebody's pulling security. That can be their primary weapon system.
Yeah. I mean, the great thing also is it has AR pattern controls. So the learning curve in terms of running a Genesis versus a pump, the pump you have to put more time and get used to that. Honestly, even with a semi-automatic standard shotgun, because tube loading on a reload, it takes a lot of practice, especially to be proficient with it. Under duress, if I have to run a reload on a Genesis, it's an AR pattern.
I just picked it up and shot it and everything.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it's perfect.
The only thing is obviously the barrier to entry is a bit high. So with that being said, there are other semi-automatic AR style shotguns or bullpup style shotguns. The problem is, and this is to me a very big problem and something I've talked to Henry at 9 Hole Reviews about, is reliability is something that is outside of your control. Like, I can control accuracy, I can control performance because I can train and get better. But if I don't have a reliable weapon system, there's nothing I can do to control that. And so that's something that's a huge deal, and why I understand why Genesis put a lot of money and time into their system was to make it as reliable as possible. We didn't have a single jam today running the Genesis.
My second time in the range with you, it's never jammed on me.
Yeah, and it's never jammed. And so, like, if I'm going to be engaging drones, it's my last ditch effort. It's the last thing I have for the last few seconds of my life. I want it has to run. There's no question. It has to shoot when I want it to shoot. And so that's the one thing that I can see on the Genesis side is why that's a high barrier to entry. And to be honest, like, the way that I view the Genesis, especially for people in our community, like, I'm not made of money, you know, but it's one of those things where it'd be like almost like a group asset purchase. So like you have your community, you group asset buy a drone, you group asset buy a thermal clip-on or something of that nature. You group asset buy a PDS12, and then you end up saying, hey, you know, this guy's gonna be the drone operator dude, or if someone's well off, you know, then that's what you run. As far as on a government scale, I know that they are also, they have the ability to be put on SR-25 lowers. So now the military can keep its SR-25 inventory or its M110 inventory and just swap the uppers out. So you kind of
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it's genius. You go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, no, I just wanted to say that point 100% bears repeating. I actually have a semi-automatic mag-fed shotgun that you've never seen because I can't get through a mag with it.
Oh, really?
Like, I bought it. It's a range toy. I bought it well before the drone situation.
Yeah.
I bought it as a range toy, but I don't even bring it to the range because I don't like shooting it.
Yeah.
And this is the third range trip I've been out with you in this Genesis. I've probably put 100, 200 rounds to it just myself. And it's a great gun. Like, it's a great weapon system. It works great. And when it came time to do this project for my shotgun, I looked at my semi-automatic shotgun and said, I'm gonna buy a pump.
Right.
Because of that exact point, because reliability. If I'm gonna do this project, it has to work.
Right, yeah, no, 100%. And so, yeah, I mean, as far as like some of the damages, one of the things that we also saw in terms of a failure point on drones, obviously, is the rotor equilibrium. If you hit that camera, which you had on yours, I think it was number 8 shot, it literally hit the flipping lens.
Yeah, this one's not taking off again.
Yeah, that's done. Oh, wow, so both the landing gear came off. So we got landing gears off. What else we got? So exposed rotor.
Yeah, pop that. We got a hole here, hole here, hole here, hole here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's a bunch of pellets in there.
There's done. So that was at 30 yards. Yeah. And number 7.5 shot.
And yeah. I mean, you can definitely tell. I think this is where the choke gets in.
Right.
You can tell. I hit this with a lot more pellets.
Right. So, but I mean, like, it goes back to,
what are you going to do? Do you want a dedicated drone weapon?
Right.
Or you want something that's more...
The other thing is also a dedicated drone weapon that, as far as loading your options, like, you have to remember what's in the tube versus like, hey, I can take a box mag out, put a drone mag in, or put a breech load mag in, or a trench shotgun mag in, or slugs. So, and so that now prohibits your ability to be able to fly because you can't see as a pilot. And then also, if you hit that lithium battery,
Oh yeah, yeah. This one, you hit the battery, you've got a hard kill.
yeah, it's done.
It's good.
So what's kind of neat is the fact that we could disrupt the equilibrium enough where it was actually reflyable, meaning you can recover that drone and kind of almost pioneer that asset for yourself. Or
smarter folks than me, there's probably some SIGINT that could be.
Oh yeah, 100%. You can kind of figure out if you can pull the feed off the camera.
Sure.
Yeah,
it's got an SD card in it.
Yeah, and get the data from it.
So.
So for those who are in the beeps and squeaks, but cool experiment. Yeah, we'll keep running with the video.
So just like courses of fire for like other competitions, each station is set up a little bit different. So the birds either come in at a different height, a different angle. Some might come right at you. They have rabbits that like roll across the ground. So at each station you'll come up, you'll see where like the A machine is, the B machine, and then what direction it throws in. And so just like a golf course, there's 20 different stations here. So 20 different chances to shoot different courses.
Is it possible to do A/B like 1 and 2?
Yeah, so you have different. I'm not super duper with sporting plays. It's like not my thing, but you have what's called a report pair. So on a report pair, the shooter will call pull. When they call that, you'll click the first button. The clay will launch. As soon as they shoot their gun, boom. That's your key to hit the second button, and it'll automatically launch it. So you can either do a report pair, or you can do what's called a true pair. A true pair is when they call pull, it's going to launch them both right at the same time. So boom, boom. So just a little bit harder. Get in front of it, and it was way too much.
Oh. Good job.
Yep.
Good job.
Right on it.
He was bottom edge. That's good enough. All right. Do again.
Okay. Oh.
Nice.
Really good.
Nice.
That's good.
Is that the same one right in the reticle?
That looked great.
Yeah. Are you seeing the bird outside the reticle and taking your eyes to the reticle? Or are you trying to see it all the way through the reticle?
So I saw it outside the reticle, so I started up here, but unlike the rifle, I took my face out of it, watched here, like you taught me last time, and I let it come in, and then I took the shot obviously in the reticle because I used the reticle to.
Well,
as an
see,
aiming point.
what that does, your brain can calculate that speed when it can see the gap. But it can't see a big enough gap in that reticle. So all your brain sees is this, and that's the reason Dion was shooting so far out in front of it. You have to have a way for your brain to calculate the speed of that target.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's that target or a jet. You have to be able to calculate that amount of forward lead to hit it. All right?
Yeah, I think with some practice, I could get good at this. All right.
On report.
Oh. Can you tell?
Can you tell? First one.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you tell where was the first one high?
No.
High
Behind it.
Behind
You
it?
didn't quite give it enough.
Yeah.
Now, the further you let that target go that way, the more you're looking at the reticle instead of the speed of the target.
Yeah.
So when you see that target over here, you can calculate that gap. So when it appears in your reticle, everything's moving at the same time and you can kill it. But the longer you look in the reticle, you lose that calculation.
Okay.
If it was a man running away from you or running across, man can't run near as fast as that thing. You can stay in the reticle. I've killed a lot of running animals with a scope, but you have to know to stay in front because of all my shotgun shooting. But the moving target part of it is critical. You have to be able, your brain will calculate that in a split second.
Yeah.
But you have to be used to it. All right, do it again.
Oh.
Nice.
Nice.
You're picking. I can see his eyes over here.
Yeah.
Picking it up outside and letting it come right to the reticle. That ability lets you focus on the target as the gun comes to the target.
Yeah.
You're waiting till it gets right there. You're looking at it. You can take the reticle off of it and break that target.
Yeah. Steve's good at it because he's old like you are.
Yeah.
That's funny.
All right. Now, let's see how good you really are.
Okay.
Yeah, he's about to test you.
Oh boy.
Oh, here we go.
Here comes a test.
All right. You got 2 of them at a time. You got to kill both of them because one of them can kill you just as easy as the second one.
Oh.
Excellent.
That was a good one.
Nice. In
You mean
terms
like-
of, did it feel like you had enough control to be able to drive it to the next play? Like
Oh
you
yeah,
did?
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. It's so small. It's like running a little 10-3 like a Mark 18 or something. Like that's what it feels like to me. Almost like you don't have enough hand space to put on the rail. Like kind of the same problem you run into with like a Mark 18 or something. But
Right.
Now I'll tell
yeah,
you.
but it's definitely maneuverable.
I
Like
wonder if they could, like an SD, like and have the suppressor inset within the handguard to give you more rail space.
well, how hot do shotgun suppressors get? Do they get hot? I'm not familiar with like how
Nah,
hot
it's
they
not
would
bad.
get
Nah, it's not hot
compared to like if
that
you
bad at all.
mag dumped an AR and 30 rounds.
I
I think
got
it would be
gloves
too
on,
hot to
but-
touch. But here, it's not bad.
Yeah. But it's not bad in terms of recoil. And stuff.
Oh no, it's much tamer. That those slugs were. This is probably half of what those slugs
Yeah.
were.
Cool. Nope.
Yeah, call for it.
Pull. Nope.
Dion, I think it's your age. I think
Yeah,
it's
I'm
because
too
you're too
young.
young. Yeah, you
too
need
young.
to get
I think
get some
that
more
was-
miles on those.
I
When you
think
were
that was
shooting it, where did you have the clay in relation to the reticle? Because that one, like both of those were like right in the center of the donut, and it didn't hit.
All right, so here's your optic, right? The clay starts out here, so I watch the clay come, and then I'm kind of more in the optic as it comes into the optic. The actual center dot of the reticle, I was holding, say, if this is the clay, I was trying to hold it just like right in front of it.
So
And I don't
in that,
think that's
in that
zero.
gap, in that gap between the center dot and the side ring.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
But he's letting his brain calculate
Yeah.
that target a long time before it ever gets to the reticle.
Yeah, yeah.
It comes with age. It comes
Yeah.
with it.
Just like arthritis.
Ah.
Pull. That one felt good.
Your hands are so fast right at the last second. That's what you're doing.
It's because I'm young.
That's because that's
It's 'cause I'm young.
You have no coordination.
I don't have the arthritis.
Well,
So I'm
trust
alive.
me, it'll come. I guarantee that will come. Put your hands up there. Now, instead of going like that to hit that thing, just
Glide it.
just easy. See the target and visualize how slow that target is. You're shooting in front of it every time.
Okay.
All right? Hands are too fast.
All right. Pull. I'm not the drone guy. I'm the I carry the regular rifle. I find it this way more difficult than like what y'all use. Like,
well,
I think it would be easier for me, like if I just took the red dot off.
Yes, it would be.
Because I'm so focused on like when I shoot a rifle, like, hey, is this zero? Like, instead of using like natural instinct, like I want to, but then the second I see the red dot, I'm like, oh, like shoot it like a rifle, and it's not a rifle, it's a shotgun.
Yeah.
An AR, sort of.
All right, killer.
Shoot, we'll see. Pull.
Yeah.
Now,
There we
you
go.
feel how slow you moved that time?
Yeah.
Now you're finally in time with the target.
All right.
Yeah.
The real problem is the lubrication here is now gone
Yeah.
because these steel cases get hot even though the barrel's not hot, and unless you have that seasoned, it's going to burn the lubrication out and your shells will jam every time.
More lube
More lube's gonna be better.
And good lube.
Okay.
All right. Pull.
Hey!
All right. Pull.
Now you
Oh,
got your timing is everything. You can't get ahead of the target.
all right.
Pull. I was clear to the right of it. If I tried to pull it again, I'd flinch. I shoot a release trigger.
Yeah.
I can only shoot one time.
So yeah, on his shotgun, when you want to shoot, you pull the trigger, and then when you let go, it fires.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what it stops is like, you know how you have that flinch when you pull a trigger sometimes?
okay.
Like, yeah, there's no flinch because you're just letting off.
See, I shot so much that in a 100-round event, I'd flinch horribly 10 times. I'd lose 10 targets.
Yeah.
And it got so bad I might break 4 out of those 10, but it was costing me 6 targets out of 100.
Wow.
And a friend of mine shot a release trigger forever. He said, try this. Took me a box of shells, 25 targets, to get used to shooting that release target, that release trigger. 10 times smoother. It's so much smoother. You just let go of it.
Wow.
Bobby Booth bought my backup gun. He'd never shot a release trigger in his life. We shot probably 10 times, and he said, man, this is a whole much better.
Wow.
So, but I can tell you right now, it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Pull.
I know he got the first one. I think he might have got the second one.
I think you got the second one, too.
Pull.
Excellent.
Nice.
Good job. Good job.
Hey,
That ain't easy.
no, that's legit. You're on a roll right now. Feel a full load.
Pull.
Hey, he clipped him.
Dang.
Yep.
Shooting them drone. You're the drone guy now.
Yeah. We know what Steve's role is going to be.
I don't know if I want that responsibility, but
That's too bad.
I'll take it.
What you'll find, if you try to shoot it multiple times now, 5 or 6 times, I'm guessing that it'll jam on about the 3rd or 4th round because the case gets hot. That steel case gets hot, and there's probably not a good quality lube. I tell guys with shotguns all the time, they jam in a shotgun because it gets hot and expands and it dries the chamber out. This is what causes that problem.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks it's the magazine or it's because that gets hot, drives it out. I tell everybody, take a piece of paper towel, soak it, and just leave it in there. Leave your chamber open, set it upside down, put that paper towel in there, and use a quality oil.
What oil do you recommend?
It doesn't matter. It's just the fact that it has to have some lubrication. Any quality oil.
What do you use?
It's like a Kotex. You just stick it up in there, and the oil will seep into that steel. The steel that are in chambers today, it's not that it's not quality, it's not lubed. In my day, when you got a new shotgun, it was covered in cosmoline. It's like a wax, so that it wouldn't rust. Today, they just send them out. The barrels are lined in most cases, but if they're not, they send them out with just a small amount of lube so that it doesn't leak out and get on the wood. And you shoot it 10 times and it jams. I've had guys come out here with brand new 870s. 3rd or 4th time they can't get it open. That's why I put all these sticks in.
Yeah.
Because they can't
knock
get it
shells
open.
out.
You put a little lube in it, it'll work fine.
Is there more in there?
Yeah, there's more than 2 in here.
Oh, okay.
So
I'll do these 2 first, unless you want to.
No, we're gonna test you. What I'm gonna do is it's gonna go report pair. Once you hit the report pair on the second B bird, I'm launching a true pair, and then once you click the gun once, I'm just gonna keep them coming. You'll see.
Yeah.
You'll see.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna pretend Drones with explosives on them are coming for me.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I'm gonna do what I would do in the real life. All right.
Frenzy.
Drones inbound.
Drones inbound.
And I don't know where they're coming from.
I'll pull.
I can hear them.
Nice, got it.
Huh.
Nice, got that one. Oh, get it out.
See, what I'm doing is
getting lost in the
saving my round, hoping that they would like cross paths and I could try to take them both at the same time. Yeah, but they weren't crossing, so.
Yeah. The fact that you're able to reach and load a box mag, can you imagine trying to tube feed something if you're under stress like
All right,
that?
let's
oh yeah.
Let's go over to one real quick, like you said.
Yeah. All right, guys, so, in this part of the video, I actually have Eric from Ascend ISR Systems here, and we're going to be discussing a whole myriad of topics, all related to weapon systems, specifically small arms that the team's going to utilize. We're also going to discuss active and passive defense for drones and how to be able to defend against them, and also what's being used currently in the war in Ukraine, as well as in other conflicts around the world. And then we're also going to talk about EW systems, or electronic warfare systems, and then just the general conversation about the team construct, armament for them, the reasons why, and also some of the active small arms that are used to combat drones the most effective way. So once again, Eric, thanks for joining me, and yeah, it's good to have you back.
Yeah, thanks, man. Really excited to be here.
And for those who didn't hear or watch the first episode, could you give yourself a brief introduction on what you do within the drone space?
Yeah, so right now, Ascend ISR Systems, we make a series of enhancements for unmanned air systems, mostly multispectral camouflage. Right now, we make electronic warfare systems, so countermeasures to electronic warfare systems, specifically aperture detection systems. We have a new line of products going live next week, actually, that are going to just touch on those. We also make droppers, so we specialize in payload delivery systems. We also even have a new guided munition system, Eric, that I showed you. I thought that was pretty cool, but we built a script that helps guide in a smaller kind of snub UAS device that drops from our dropper onto target. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, that's insane. It's crazy. Like, every time I hear you talk about that, I'm just like, the evolution of this drone warfare phenomena is going so fast. And I think that I'm not going to be surprised. This is kind of a chicken trail right off the bat, but I wouldn't be surprised if all of a sudden we start seeing a combination between AI, algorithms, problem solving with drones.
Oh, 100%. You're going to see it. It's actually in use right now. Way more advanced. Multitude of drone systems are utilizing that right now. Yeah, it's really, really terrifying.
Damn, dude, that's crazy. Well, so I kind of want to start off with. We'll talk about the active small arms for active defense against drones. Mm-hmm. But the biggest one that's going to be a huge point of contention that we actually talked about earlier in the video with the Genesis Arms PDS12 shotgun. But what are some pros and cons to using shotguns for drones? Because I think what happens is a lot of people are like, oh my goodness, that's so dumb. You're never going to be able to shoot that with it's going to kill you before you even know. But I think that the big thing that folks need to consider is, it's like, if you have the last 2 to 3 seconds left on this planet, what would you rather have? And so, but also there's a lot of misconceptions about overstating what shotguns can provide and too much security. So what are your thoughts about shotguns in relation to counter drone techniques?
So I think shotguns are like baseline. As a weapons platform, they're hyper capable, right? You can swap out different loads very, very fast in the field. You can press them into different roles very quickly. The issue that I see when it relates to drones, immediately right off the rip is the shotguns themselves and also the ammunition that they utilize. It's extremely heavy and it's cumbersome, and it's not something as capable, let's say, or I would say is suited for combat as an assault rifle, right, or a very dedicated precision rifle. With that said, shotguns excel at, I think they're certainly better than standard rifles and carbines at defending against drones specifically. But it's something that you should probably consider maybe utilizing or employing from your vehicle, right? I've seen a lot of guys in Ukraine taking a shotgun, putting it on their four-wheeler or their truck, and using it to defend against drones that way. But as far as something that maybe is used or carried with you all the time, you may want to evaluate that in light of other equipment that you may have to prioritize. So if you're running mortars, GPMGs, stuff of that nature, it's at the end user's discretion. Would I 100%, if I was getting attacked by drones, I would rather have a shotgun than a rifle, absolutely. But that's it may not, circumstances obviously in the field change pretty rapidly, so it may not be something that you want to take with you right off the get-go and dedicate your entire setup to.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. Do you think that if the team was large enough that there could be a role that's dedicated to running a shotgun and like a pistol for a backup weapon, if there's other team members that are able to cover all those things? Because I think that, not that long ago, and in the Marines, they were running the BARRELHATCHET, and that was a primary role for breaching, for CQB. It was about in the last 20 years, or it's been a while, but like it seems like because of Afghanistan and Iraq, things were so spread out to where now shotguns were mostly used in a breaching capability. But in the Battle of Fallujah and a lot of the invasion of Iraq, the BARRELHATCHET was heavily used in a CQB urban combat type role. And so, do you think there's space for a dedicated shotgunner on a drone team if there are other drone operators within the team or guys that are able to kind of cover for him, just so that they have that consistent capability?
On a larger team, I think absolutely. On a smaller team, if the ground element's between like 4 to 10 guys, again, maybe something they want to look at on a case-by-case basis, which everyone does from an operational standpoint as to what kit selected to go on mission.
Yeah, I think it would make sense, I think, in more of the almost like an additional piece of equipment that you have to carry along with, like kind of like an M203. Like you have a 203 launcher, but it's not your primary thing.
Exactly.
You have a primary weapon system. You have your M203, which is your specialty weapon, and then your sidearm if you want to run that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Have you heard of any of the different types of loads, or heard from, maybe where in your line of work and where you're at, what type of loads have worked best for drones? Or is it just a standard? Because I know we tried 7.5 and number 8 shot, which is what you can buy at Walmart for like clay pigeons, and we actually had success at knocking drones down at 50 yards with that. So have you guys heard about anything as far as maybe specialty rounds that have maybe had a positive effect?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen there's been discussions from Army Special Warfare about making specialized like flechette style rounds, but birdshot and buckshot in some cases has been extremely effective. So I would say something off the shelf. I would utilize just standard field loads. Birdshot, buckshot should probably do it. I actually would take birdshot over buck, 100% actually.
Yeah, so what's funny is we actually tried buckshot, and I was actually running the mill grade breaching buckshot number 9 buckshot loads, and I was duly surprised at how hard it was, how many shots it took to be able to even hit the drone, because the spread was so big. Not the spread was big, but there was just not a large blanket coverage of pellets. And so what we ended up finding out is the more pellets you had, it was just a screen almost, that it not necessarily would damage the drone at distance. Now, as you got closer, it would damage the drone, hit the props, and cause chips and damage the camera. But it was essentially enough to throw the equilibrium of it off, where it would flip and then go down, which was pretty fascinating. I mean, we there was a couple of drones that we had that we just like started them back up and flew them again. But I was really surprised at at buckshot. I thought it was gonna be a lot more effective. Now when it hits that drone, it definitely takes it down, but it took like 4 or 5 shells to be able to put enough lead in the air to kind of cover that spread area. But I'm curious about the nets or the wire, special drone shells, how effective those actually are.
I think well, honestly, time will tell. I know that it's the Army, right? Big Army is now looking at shotguns again. The Benelli M4 was, I'm partial, obviously, to the Benelli M4. I own one. It's like the civilian version of it. But yeah, man, I think time will tell. Right now, it's kind of, in terms of unmanned air systems and countermeasures to them, just like the drones themselves, we're in the infancy stage. So I think there will be more advanced rounds, maybe even some, maybe something that you'll see out of Elysium, where you have like that Elysium AK with the airburst rounds.
Dude,
right?
that thing is so sick.
It would be really cool. We'll see. I think with electronic, there could even be a fusion of systems with electronic, like individual processing units that are guiding shotgun shells up in, 40 years, 20 years. Things are going really fast, so we'll see.
Yeah, the past 4 years, drones went from nothing as just a recreational thing to like now we're talking about it and it's a full on battlefield technique, and there's operators that are being designated into that role. So like, that's just 4 years, man. Think about 2020,
It's going to be insane.
Yeah, and so one of the things that I think that is one of the challenges with the shotgun, or even just trying to shoot physically, point to point, shoot a drone out of the air that we experienced is, first off, how fast are those FPVs usually going?
So it depends, right? The smaller, like off-the-shelf Avadas, right? They're pretty slow, to be completely honest. But they excel. They have their own use cases and application type, right? But a lot of these FPV drones, for example, even like an iFly system, it can go from like 0 to 70 miles an hour in around 2 to 3 seconds. Like they're extremely fast. Insane acceleration from these. You'll see them again if you're a capable builder and with just a good lipo battery. You can see these things go in cases exceed 100 miles an hour in under 5 seconds.
Wow, it's just like how, like, if you're like trying to go skeet shooting, and we actually showed it early in the video of me trying to learn how to skeet shoot and actually shoot leading targets and stuff like that. And what Felix was saying from QUADTAC systems is like, if you want to get good at shooting drones, have a skeet thrower throw it directly at you and then try to shoot it. And I was like, golly, just shooting a clay pigeon is tough. And I can't imagine a clay pigeon that's going 8 times the speed and changing directions on a whim.
Yeah, it's like a totally different, dynamic in terms of engaging a moving target, but you... Good luck with some of the newer FPV systems, what I will say. And that's, again, I would much rather, obviously, if I was being pursued by a FPV with an RPG-7 warhead strapped to it, or an RG-5 grenade, I'd 100% rather take a shotgun than a rifle. But with that said, my chances are I'm certainly at a disadvantage.
Yeah, it's like if you have like a 3% chance of living with a rifle, you at least get like a 6% chance with a shotgun. But it's still something, a little bit better. And I like your actual, concept of having it in a vehicle. So like, maybe on an ATV or a dirt bike. Like dirt bikes are becoming a very trending type of transportation, not even here in the gun industry, but even in Ukraine, where there's Russian dirt bike assault groups that are like, it's insane. Like they're just pulling everything out of the box. Both sides are trying to figure out an advantage. And so kind of mounting that system to carry that almost like a saddle, I think is actually a pretty interesting concept that would definitely be considered, because I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've seen over with the war in Europe, there's not too much infilling over long distances on foot. It seems like it's a lot of like vehicles that are providing transport, and then you infill, or it takes you almost right up to the line and then they drop you off and provide cover. So it seems like there's a lot more vehicle support than what a lot of us kind of realize because of how easy it is to get spotted by drones. If you try to walk 5 miles in, like that's 5 miles that you have to walk undetected, right? And I feel like vehicles is just fast, get you there quick, almost like a lightning assault, drop you off and try to overwhelm the enemy, along with like an FPV drone swarm that's in conjunction with your fire team.
No, 100%. Yeah, you're seeing a lot of vehicle use in Ukraine, specifically ground-based vehicles. Because there's just an abundance of them from a lot of Cold War stockpiles on both sides, actually. And the second, element to that equation is the aerial systems. So like traditional manned aircraft, helicopters, and other, I would just say more helicopters, transport helicopters. They're at least from the Ukrainian side of things, they're a lot less expendable than what the Russians' air systems are. Just because, again, quantity of systems in circulation, but also you can have in a situation where an FPV drone can absolutely annihilate a moving aircraft, like a moving helicopter, and that's happened before. You've had a fixed wing VTOL take off, deploy a smaller FPV drone that's running an analog system. The FPV drone, is now set or at a ceiling where it's closer to the operational altitude of these helicopters, and it could just slam into them. So again, it's obviously that dynamic as far as favoring ground vehicles is dictated, of course, by prevalence and access, but moreover, it's also, risk adversity in some ways.
What are some of the ways that there's all different types of crazy, like, can you, for the audience, explain why some of these crazy contraptions we're seeing on vehicles, how is that defending that vehicle from drone attacks? Like some of the netting and all this craziness on there.
Yeah, so you've seen like multispectral camouflage for drones, right? Which we have, but take that principle and apply it to an entire vehicle. Like take a ghillie netting and wrap it around an entire like armored structure, like having it blend into the terrain. That's a countermeasure. It's kind of basically the way they're looking at it is terrain exploitation, right? You're utilizing your natural environment, thick forests, valleys, even like more urban areas with rubble. You can just get a system of netting or, even just natural terrain and strap it to your vehicle to have it blend in. But that's one way they're using to avoid drones. And as far as like electronic warfare is concerned, just electronic jamming systems mounted to these vehicles. So you'll see a little bit of like elevated or raised up antennas, or basically look like massive junction boxes on these vehicles. Those are jammers.
Just for my sake as well, what's the basics of EW? Can you kind of explain what electronic warfare is, and then some of just like the basic 101 on that?
So it basically involves actively interfering with an enemy drone's ability to operate effectively, right? When you're dealing with, it's infantry personnel that can use handheld or vehicle-mounted EW systems to execute attacks or evasion techniques against drones. And the whole system of electronic warfare, the way I kind of would organize it is attack, protection, and support. And with attack, you have systems like dedicated jamming devices, which, jamming systems, in short, from a high level, they disrupt drone communications, navigation signals, so they attack GPS, radio control links. That's the extent of it. You have spoofing, right, which sends false GPS or control signals to drones to mislead their navigation system. You have HPMs, so you have like basically microwave attacks. You're using directed energy to damage or disable a drone's electronics. And then you have cyber attacks, which exploit software vulnerabilities to take control or disable that drone aircraft. And that's what we spoke about from our first video too, in regards to leaving some of these older DJI models. If you leave your SD card in the drone, it can also like increase its susceptibility to a cyber attack. We've had that video. I'll actually send this to you. There was some cord operators that were taking a lot of fire from Russians, and were actually repositioning themselves to break contact and set up a counter ambush. But there was a Russian Mavic 3, and it dropped a small IED on them. It took them out, and has it like wounded one of the guys, the Ukrainian electronic warfare team was able to hijack that drone. But that obviously occurred after it dropped its munition systems. But it's crazy. Like that's an example though of a cyber attack in action.
Yeah. So we have the EW thing, where you're utilizing electronic warfare and cyber warfare to be able to counter drones or to get around, kind of that drone defense, like having it on your vehicle, having it in a man pack. What are some of the passive defense tactics that you've seen in Ukraine, for example, like fishnets over your trench or something of that nature?
Yeah, netting 100%. Netting's huge because it defends against FPV attacks. So a lot of war fighting right there in that environment. It's kind of devolved or shifted to trench warfare in some areas. And every trench that you see, if it's being manned by, I guess, some grizzled vets, they're utilizing netting systems to deter FPV drones from trying to like break through and start actually like specifically enveloping that trench with a coordinated, like, concentrated strike. So Proapto gear makes a really, really nice full body thermal mitigation system, or like thermal mitigation ghillie system, like it's a ghillie suit. But it uses it covers like the NIR, so near infrared, TIR, right, which is thermal, like, again, fantastic visibility characteristics and properties, like it in terms of the exact actual like exterior camo pattern on the system. So it's kind of a full spectrum camouflage system for an infantry guy. You have RELV. RELV is fantastic. It's the RELV Eclipse specifically. You throw it over your body, kind of is a hide system. So it kind of excels against for thermal mitigation, thermal evasion.
Yeah, hiding from thermal essentially.
Yes, exactly. It's like a hide. It's a hide system.
Okay.
So think of it as like a sniper hide system. It's not something that you would wear necessarily on body all the time. So it's not. It could be even damaged in some ways if it has like continuous exposure to the sunlight. But it's a fantastic system if like you're in a foxhole or a dugout to just throw over yourself, because it does mitigate signature that way.
I know that it is a high cost point on that thing though. Like they're not cheap. So if people are looking for them, they are pretty pricey. But I'm curious, have you guys, like, I've seen Falcon Claw, they put out a video, but one that I actually played around with was the umbrella. So we spray painted an umbrella and just had it away from you, and that would actually cover up your thermal signature as long as the umbrella or material wasn't making contact with the body, or like you said, getting heated up by the sun. So I spray painted it and put like ghillie scrim on it and stuff like that, and that way when it comes to like the naked eye or with thermal, I was relatively hidden. So like if you're in a foxhole, you pop that umbrella and put it over top of you. That I feel like is pretty effective. But I think the key is just don't get found in the first place. Like don't attract attention to where someone's gonna stick a thermal sensor in your area.
Yeah, exactly. No, I 100% have seen that too. You have a lot of different dudes in Ukraine that are just taking a various array of improvised objects and outfitting them with natural environmental debris, foliage, spray painting them, and they're extremely effective. I think the main concern as far as integrating those into your kit from a long-term or like an operational an operational set of conditions that requires you to move a lot, which is, maneuver warfare, right? We're at that point, right, where it's
carrying an umbrella with you everywhere. It's
exactly. It's gonna be cumbersome. So
right.
That as far though as like setting up, if you're in a static position and you're doing you're gonna be operating from within a hide, or you're in a structure, right, that has some form of some form of covering over it, it's absolutely a viable strategy, 100%. I say as far as like fitting it into your assault pack, right?
Yeah.
Probably want some of the more lighter mesh-based systems.
I was thinking about like if I had, because obviously there's, and some other stuff that I do outside of the gun industry, like hide sites and stuff like that is super important about camouflage and hide site, but also like defense, passive defense, whether obviously you put out your claymores and you put out all that other stuff. But like I thought about like maybe getting like fishing line and just crisscrossing it, because one, it'd be kind of hard to see, especially if your fishing line is maybe like a darker color that's almost translucent, but you just crisscross fishing line in between trees on areas that are high avenues of approach around your hide site. So that way, if you don't have a fishing net, you know, because like who's going to go get a fishing net and where do you find that? Or so just using fishing line. I'm curious if that would work.
I think it. Well, that's a great question. I think I've never seen that.
Yeah.
I've never seen that, but I think it absolutely could disrupt like an FPV that was coming in fast, right?
Right.
And it's just like trying to fly in, because FPVs, right, at the end of the day, they're precision weapon systems, right? They allow the user, the pilot, to navigate through a very, very tight area and then, you know, deliver that payload onto target. So I think that would certainly be a barrier of entry for those aircraft into your position. If it was set up, I guess if it was a very thorough setup, right?
Yeah.
You are utilizing a lot of fishing line.
Yeah, it'd have to be a semi-permanent or permanent site to be able to add that. And at that point, it's like, well, you can add other types of things to be able to kind of mitigate, utilize some form of netting to be able to protect your fighting position or your hide site. So I think one of the things that, if you were going to be building a trench, so you add, like, let's just say, for example, you're set up in a house, you have a little trench network in the backyard, and you're in an urban environment that's been destroyed by war, what would you do to try to fortify your position from drone attacks or just in general? So we've got netting, obviously good camouflage. What are some other things that you personally would think would be a good idea to kind of fortify that position?
So I would say static electronic warfare systems for sure. And you'll see those, like, you know, jamming devices. You have a dedicated room or area of that structure that's completely outfitted with devices on the electronic warfare side to counter incoming aircraft. You have I would say probably just investing in that.
Yeah.
A ton of electronic warfare equipment. And there's, again, it would be we've seen that in Ukraine. There, like, especially in Bakhmut. In Bakhmut, that was a serious strategy in the midpoint of that battle.
Now, is it hard to, like, is there stuff on the open market, like, for just buying electronic warfare equipment? Like, I don't even know how someone would get that, because I mean it's open. It's out in the open enough where there's been actual pictures of cartel members running EW systems on their trucks and in their backpacks. So it has to be somewhat available.
Software is absolutely available. Yeah,
okay.
Software is open source at this point. Hardware is a little bit more difficult.
Right.
So they're, like, as far as like AVI, you can learn that right now with just basic programming skills. Yeah, that's available, and something you can pursue with, like, a little bit of knowledge, and again, a select array of, like, purchasing, understanding, and, like, what to get. But it's all that stuff is available.
Huh. That's fascinating. Yeah, it's I'm curious. I'm like, I wonder what the long-term effects of some of these guys wearing these massive man-pack radiating EW systems is going to be. But I mean, in the short term, it could be life-saving. So
regardless, VA will deny it.
Yeah, exactly right. Not service-related. But no, I think it's the one thing is a lot of people are kind of thinking, like, well, how do I buy that stuff? Like, how do I get that type of stuff? You know, where do I even start? And if there's resources online, that obviously does help quite a bit. Now, I think that one of the things that I did find that was pretty fascinating is actually Brushbeater, when I was up in North Carolina. He sells a spectrum analyzer, and you can utilize a spectrum analyzer that you can buy on Amazon. But essentially, it'll show the spike of the frequency of a drone in the area and gives you like a radial size of detection. So like a big circle. So it's like, hey, a mile out, I've got a spike on a frequency that's a drone frequency. So within a mile, you have something that's flying around. So maybe take actions like try to cover up, or, you know, hide into some cover real quick, go inside of a building. So that is I think a way that you can utilize something that's on the open market to be able to counter by just have more SA, situational awareness equipment that you can utilize to be able to hide from them, is what I think is the most practical and probable for things in terms of people on the open market trying to figure out a way how to defeat these things.
Yeah, no, the spectrum analyzer is like actually a fantastic tool. You can get one, like you can get a Wilson Pro, for example, that scans for various LTE signals. You can get one that also scans for, like, again, specific radio frequencies on drones. Like, they're fantastic. Yeah.
Wow.
And the like purpose of that is they're literally they're handheld systems, right? You can fit that into like your assault pack. You know,
Right.
it doesn't take up much space. But again, you also, like, for a more capable system that can, you know, detect a multitude of different, you know, signal strengths and various like types of frequencies across a multitude of like just different spectrums, they can get pricey. Like, they are expensive. You can, I think they range, at least ones that are capable, between like $1,100 and $1,800.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
For some of the more advanced ones. So.
Right. I know the basic ones that I was seeing were like, I think $200.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously the array and the spectrum is not going to be that wide, but it's a start. It's something, at least, you know. Now, kind of going and circling back to the if you were to outfit your vehicle, let's just say, kind of like with, we're seeing barbed wire and, you know, people are welding cages and stuff like that. Like, at what point does that become impractical, or is that essentially going to be something where it's like, hey, that's just the way that we got to have our vehicles now?
Well, I would say if it starts interfering with your ability to receive information in the field. For example, I have a Starlink system, and I have I'm actually building out a system right now that can mount it to the top of a vehicle. A lot of guys actually were doing that during disaster relief operations for Hurricane Helene.
Right.
That was a huge area where, in more adverse or non-permissive areas, like more remote areas in Virginia and North Carolina, like Greater Appalachia, they were running Starlink on top of their trucks to get to areas, right? And if it starts interfering with that, if you can't mount Starlink to your truck, or if you can't, I don't know, if it becomes a real power to weight ratio, that's where I would start cutting back. I've seen those photos, and I'll send you them right after this recording is over. But I've seen photos of T-70s, T-90s, right? These massive tanks and armored personnel carriers with these like extremely crude welded structures on them to like actually try to prevent FPV drones from hitting them. Like, it's pretty wild, honestly. Like a moving cage, an umbrella for a tank.
Yeah.
They look goofy. That's the thing. They look extremely goofy, but they're effective. Like, that's the bottom line. When I was first exposed to this, actually, one of my contacts in the Ukrainian military, like, genuinely, we were just texting one night, and he showed me this image of that tank, and he's like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And I said, "It looks stupid." And he's right. He's like, you know, he really actually, it was an interesting conversation, because he was like, this is actually extremely smart. It was a Russian tank. It was a Russian tank, and he said, like, you know, for everything being equal, right? He's like, that actually protected the crew of that tank. And like, I think that the larger armies, right, the U.S. military, for example, not only they're ignoring a lot of concepts and important elements of drone warfare in regards to the importance and the emphasis that they should be placing on these cheaper, more cost-effective drones, but they're also kind of avoiding more technical or even just basic quality of life enhancements or countermeasures to these systems, to drones specifically, that could really help or mitigate casualties in the field. I think we're sometimes, in some cases, we're too focused on building out more advanced weapon systems and embracing like this like super hyper advanced, you know, kind of Ghost Recon-ish warfighter concept.
Right.
It's like Land Warrior, you know, like Land Warrior was destined to fail early 2000s, late 90s, right? Like that was a program that fell on its face because the Army ignored a lot of like really important foundational qualities, like quality of life systems and like, I guess, simplicity with like the hardware and software of what that, you know, that system would have brought.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, at what point does it not become effective? And I think that when you were saying everything is so high tech, so advanced, I think the common theme that we're seeing in Ukraine is that both sides have equal technology because Ukraine being supplied NATO equipment, Russia running their equipment, and you're seeing this kind of like leveled out playing field where it's almost a stalemate. So now it's going back to, okay, who has better tactics and still remembers old school techniques to be able to route, flank, maneuver, conceal, strike fast, shoot, move, communicate type thing, where that's where we're seeing people making gains on ground. And to your point, if the military, or even for us as citizens, if we're not willing to accept change because we think it looks stupid or is a stigma, or if like that'll never work or whatever, like red dots on pistols are dumb, like if we have this kind of stuck mindset where we're not evolving, like, and we care so much about how it looks, like I could totally see the military being like, no way, you're not welding no cage on this Abrams, like you're not doing it, it looks dumb, it's against regulation. And it's like, yeah, the Russians are doing it and their crews are surviving and getting into another tank and doing it again. And I can't remember what battle it was, but there was actually a battle when I think it was the turtle tank first debuted, where they actually had welded a giant box, not just the netting and the screens, but they had a box. It literally was driving through the Ukrainian lines because the FPVs couldn't get through. And they were like, this is the dumbest looking thing, but it has literally crossed through like 3 to 4 lines of defense. FPVs weren't doing anything, and they actually had a major breakthrough in a bulge that happened in the Ukrainian line from that assault with this crazy looking, dumb looking toad tank. And so I think it goes, is like, we have to always be ever evolving in terms of thinking outside the box, even if it's a wild idea. It's like, hey man, this stuff is so new, try anything.
Right. We have to be open to change. And I think a really like fantastic, point that you brought up was like even red dots on handguns. We had so much resistance to that when it started. I think it was like the Rollins special, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Rollins special was the one that started around the time of the Rollins special was the time that red dots on pistols became a thing, right? Because you had the comp that was throwing off POI on your gun, so the red dot was being used to, I guess, fix that issue. Some of I think it was a Texas weapons systems. It was like a very, very obscure company that made it. No, it was KKM that made the comp.
Right.
Like a bunch of other smaller manufacturers that popped up. Comps were in infancy then. But yeah, exactly. Same principle applies to larger air supremacy systems, cheap FPV drones in general. You have to be adaptive. You have to have not just be agile in terms of your physical capabilities, but also mentally.
It's funny because I saw a video that was posted on X, and it was Russian recruits going through how to dodge a drone, an FPV drone training, where they're like jumping and moving out of the way. And I remember looking at the comment section, people were like, this is the dumbest thing, they'll never survive, blah, blah. I'm like, understand, this is probably real feedback of soldiers who have survived multiple FPV attacks, and they did these things and they're passing that on. And it might look ridiculous, but it must work because they're implementing it across the force. As far as like the most basic evasion technique to dodge an FPV drone that's incoming in the last 2 seconds, before impact. And so I think it's one of those things where if we're so quick to just kind of dismiss things or think it's dumb, that we'll miss some of the valuable information that's coming out, or the valuable techniques and methods that are saving lives in reality, and reshaping battlefields. And so that's where I go think in terms of like a crap hits the fan type scenario, like having someone in your community that knows how to weld, or like a machinist or mechanics that have those capabilities to be able to outfit your vehicles to have either anti-drone technique or anti-drone capability or netting or, machine gun mounts or whatever, like that's going to be huge.
Yeah, exactly. It's huge. Just having capability or real experience across a multitude of different avenues, covering your bases. It's kind of like it's like your fire team, right?
Yeah.
You want a guy you want diversity in weapon systems to an extent. You obviously want compatibility, but having a guy, for example, as we said earlier in the podcast, right, an M203, to help supplement your your suppression systems. That would be fantastic.
So if you had a 4-man drone team, Eric, and you had 4 guys in the team, you got your FPV pilot, you got your recon guy and the team leader, and you have a shotgun amongst the 4 of you, how would you want your team outfitted in terms of small arms, kind of getting into the nerdy details of the small arms side of it? What are capabilities that you would want, and even go into specifics?
So yeah, I think the best way to kind of look at this is approaching it from a high level in terms of what warfare is like now, and we touched on that in the previous video we did, right? We spoke about how basically a $500 FPV drone can wipe out a $5 million tank, right?
Right.
It's not where succeeding in the field, right, is no longer dictated by who has the largest army, who has the most, I guess, capable, static Cold War systems, right? It's now who has the smartest warfighters, right? So going off of that is something I want to touch about by Christopher Rance, and he's the author of Light Fighter Manifesto. And the Light Fighter, in short, with these books, it talks about it's a new breed of warfighter, right, that has emerged from the I guess the prevalence of FPV systems, right? The Light Fighter is a guy that uses drones, right? He's not just a shooter. He's strategically agile. He's an electronic warfare operator. He's technically capable, right? But he has smart weapons. But from an individual standpoint, this guy's very intelligent. He has smart weapons, but he's also like a thinker, right? He's decentralized and self-sustaining, right? He's a dude that understands asymmetric warfare and fundamentally recognizes his individual potential in the field. And that light fighter concept, right? These guys are operating in small teams. They're highly autonomous. And if they understand the mission, they will seize an opportunity if they see it. So it's decentralized, self-sustaining, unpredictable, and they thrive at asymmetric warfare, right?
Right.
So the foundation of this light fighter, the foundation of I think the modern infantryman, right, in terms of what weapon systems they should be looking at, we're talking about a hyper capable multi-purpose rifles, the GPR, which you've covered on your channel extensively. I think that hits it right on the head.
Right.
You want a more precision focused system, something that can consistently deliver accurate and sustained fire out to distances of 400 600 yards. But conversely, it has to be nimble enough to be pressed into a role where it has no issue engaging targets within 100 yards either, right? That's the perfect rifle in my opinion. It has to have quality optic, right? Foundationally, to do this, you need a quality optic. So an LPVO, an MPVO, whether it's a Collis, Night Force, Schmidt and Bender, Steiner, Leopold, I think Trenchicon. Trenchicon makes a great LPVO too. But those are some great companies with some LPVOs. Red Dot, Tripler. So if you're running an aim point and a their factory magnifier, an EOTech with their G33 or G43, fantastic magnifier. But omitting the optics, right? You need a laser aiming module, right? You need a LAM on your gun, you need a suppressor, access to a stability system, so a bipod in some cases. I would recommend a bipod and a light. I think a good weapon light, a Surefire Mini, or a Turbo. Those are awesome lights. But I think you need to cover a variety of areas. You need to have night fighting capability, right? Violence, as we know, it doesn't tire or sleep. It's not distinctly nocturnal, although it does love the night, right? The U.S. military, though, we used to own it. We used to own the night, but now we share it. If we were the only we were at one point, right, the only military that issued NVGs and laser aiming modules and this equipment to our conventional infantry, as well as our soft, right, our special operations guys. China and Russia, though, over the years, they expanded their domestic manufacturing capabilities. we left some gear behind in Afghanistan, and it was reverse engineered by the Chinese after they acquired it from the Taliban. So that dynamic not only impacts what our adversaries are equipping their militaries with, but it also affects what's out in the wild here in the U.S. Right? We have those Jerry C's, which are rip-offs of the Cody. Those are like fusion systems that you can like clip on to your analog night vision, right? And then they outlie someone on the thermal spectrum. You have the Chinese RH-25, which is an awesome thermal monocular, but that was built off of some of like the BAE and Trenchcon products that were left behind in Afghanistan, right? Same with the general like influx of more affordable Chinese night vision. Everyone has night fighting equipment right now, or access to it. So if you're outfitting your rifle, I think it needs to account for that. I think you need to build it up a little bit more intensely than you would even like 3 or 4 years ago. I love thermal clip-ons being put in front of MPVOs or LPVOs. I have a BAE system Skeet IR. I love that thing.
Wow.
But I would say as far as like weapons systems, rifles with good ammunition, so 77 grain 5.56 rounds, fantastic. You carry a lot of them. Playing to the strengths of each I guess guy on your team. If you guys are running mostly 5.56, plus up on mags. Get a guy maybe with a high rate of fire 5.56 system.
Right.
So not going too much into the weeds there, but if you have access to like a Fight Light MCR, if you're running even larger calibers, right, 6.5 308. If you're running those, I mean, if one of you guys happen to stumbled on an FN mag or a 240, like those, fantastic.
Yeah. So would you advocate more for each individual infantryman or Minuteman or prepared citizen having his or her own drone versus just a dedicated drone team, or do you think both?
Both.
Okay.
Both. I would say more for everyone having their own individual drone.
Right.
And the reason why I got into, I guess, the rifle concept is when you're carrying a drone, right? You're carrying supporting accessories to ensure you can actually like operate this thing for an extended cycle. You don't want to just use this thing, well, maybe an FPV drone as a one-time use case, but if you're running, for example, a thermal drone, an ISR drone, you want to continue utilizing that asset. Ideally, like mission succeeds for that drone when you're able to not only detect your OP4, but have that drone RTB, have it return to its launch point. So that would be that's ideal. And obviously, if you are carrying, if you're deploying these drones multiple times, you're carrying whether it's a ordnance for it that's dropping off the drone, whether it's extra batteries, extra props, you're carrying gear that ultimately takes up space. So you may not be running a handgun. I don't run a handgun when I go out, and that's kind of going to be met, I think, with some controversial maybe resistance to it. But I place a lot of emphasis in my fighting rifle. Like I have a 14.5, I'm running a Knights 14.5. I have a Scar 17 as well. Those are both outfitted with Night Force optics. I have a suppressor on both. I have a Surefire on my Knights, and I have I think I'm running a. Actually has to change this out because it's a Fireball, the Dead Air Sandman K. Sorry, Dead Air. The K is an older can, and it's probably not the best to be running on a 13-inch 17, but it's both of those weapon systems are fantastic in my opinion. I think you can do a lot of work with a large frame receiver, so a 6.5 308 gas gun, really really solid, and a 14.5. Same thing. If you're running an LPVO, you have a piggyback optic on that, so you can aim. You can have not active, I guess, active engagement if you're running through nods, and a passive aiming system. So like a laser. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I as we kind of explore this topic more, I feel like I agree a lot more with your notion of every rifleman having his or her own drone, almost like an additional set of binoculars to increase situational awareness. And then they can kind of put that up, figure out what's going on, get a little bit more SA, bring it back. It doesn't have to be like a dedicated drone team, which is going out and doing drone missions or employing drone tactics on a on a strategic level or tactical level for a big scale fight, right? So like, I think that's where you start to see kind of where I think both honestly are being used in Ukraine, you know, where you got people are sending their family members that are on the front line, sending it on both sides, sending them drones and Baofengs and whatever they need just to be able to increase their survivability by having more SA and a little bit more equipment that they typically wouldn't get issued. So we have this luxury here in the States, especially in our industry, to be able to front load all of that equipment and training now to where you're equipped for anything and prepared. And I think a drone needs to be just a commonplace item for the standard prepared citizen.
100%. Yeah, there's again, when you're looking at it from an individual standpoint, for every infantryman, you're not just a trigger puller, you're not just a rifleman, right? You're a detect and strike athlete with drones. And when it comes into like handguns, right? I think of always like the frequency of use with the system. A handgun's a failsafe, and I fully recognize that. But with a drone, if I'm running an FPV drone and just strap a set of extra batteries to my like battle belt, or my my dump pouch, or even like my plate carrier, for example, I don't have to devote that space to like extra mags for a handgun, for example, even if it's one or two. I have to be very weight focused. So I rather just, plus up on batteries and, an ordnance system for an FPV drone and have like an ISR or a reconnaissance drone in my backpack, right?
Yeah.
That's how I would, I guess, maneuver through the situation. You can utilize an FPV drone to take out a, $5 million, tank. You can utilize that against any number of subjects or structures. So we're talking about CQB actually the other week, and it's like you have all these advanced clearing tactics, but you really just need a drone to fly it into the building and level the whole building, take out everything.
Yeah, or at least see. I mean, like imagine if you had 5 guys and everybody has their own drone. At least you have 4 more in case one gets taken out because you go clear a building just by visually clearing it with an FPV, and then have another guy, hey, somebody bust out their little their DJI quadcopter that's like a mini 4K or a mini 2K and just send it up to see if you see anybody leave the house, So exactly. I think, and I have the Mini 3, and that thing is so light. It's just like, it's like a water bottle. Like, it's so lightweight. It takes up no space, really. And it's just like, why would you not want to have that? Why would you not want to have that equipment? I kind of wanted to wrap up kind of in conclusion. What are some final thoughts that you really want to leave with the audience? This is like, hey, this is super important to consider, whether that's armament, whether that's getting into a drone, whether that's in general, anything related to the topic.
Again, I think hitting it right on the head with every guy on a fire team should have a drone, at least one, right? We're talking about an asset that can be utilized for reconnaissance. It could be pressed in, for example, a reconnaissance drone can be pressed into an offensive strike system. You can have a DJI Mavic, a thermal unit, be outfitted with a dropper, right?
Right.
You can have an FPV drone provide reconnaissance. You can then strap ordnance to it to neutralize, said assets that were targeted or identified, let's say. You're also going to expect to lose those drones. We have the emergence of really, really capable electronic warfare systems. You have, just again a multitude of different assets that are being utilized right now to counter drones. You have aperture detection systems. So, those, I feel like a lot of people are, unaware of like what those even are, right? Like there is. You have basically a system that can laze a tree line or scan a tree line or scan a general area and try to look for electronic optics, look and try to detect apertures, like whether it's a camera, a smartphone, a red dot, an LPVO. There are systems out there that actually will look for those, target them, and then, feed in geogrid coordinates from where it identified or suspected that there was a device that falls under that spectrum. Located that, and then you'll basically send a communications, you'll send geogrid locations to everyone in that network, and then they'll start targeting and disrupting that entire area. So Like, you really do have to like cover every base, and drones provide a huge layer of again, asset identification and offensive capabilities that, quite frankly, eclipse even conventional military small arms. Like, like they really do. Like, I don't know another weapon system, right, that is out there that I can deploy from a completely confined, underground structure and then use it offensively on the surface, right? It's literally like having access to a Predator missile. Those fiber optic systems are tow missiles, as I said in the other video, right? Like, that's just insane. It's crazy seeing where, how far we've come with war, our warfighting equipment. And again, the crazy part about drones too is the point of origin for them has been largely civil, largely commercial, and just being weaponized. And that's horrifying in and of itself. But I think more importantly, it's making sure that you understand that this isn't just a phase. There's a lot of like, just again, stuff in the tactical space that may not be needed, or is a element of warfighting that's getting an additional layer of focus. Like, there's phases that we have in our community where we're focusing really strictly on RECCE, right? Or we're focusing on CQB, where everyone's running 10-5s, 11-5s, and you see high-speed guys just breaching a structure, right? With drones, for example, that structure is a moot point. It's irrelevant. If I can send in a drone to a structure that's filled with the barricaded insurgents and just detonate it, I mean, who cares? And again, these systems are precision-based systems, right? I have actual, like, real-time access to the camera when I'm running this drone. Like, I see everything that this aircraft is seeing. So it's a totally different dynamic and a totally different world out there, honestly, because of these systems. So it's not a phase, it's not a trend. We're going to continue to see these drone platforms, these unmanned air systems, continue to develop, continue to expand, and continue to disrupt the flow of the battlefield. So I think really getting comfortable with them, recognizing them as a foundational element of your kit, maybe even focusing less, not necessarily on the emphasis that you put on training with your firearms, but maybe the level to which you outfit them and like obsess over like the next LPVO, the next red dot, right? Instead of just, I guess, developing statically with your capabilities, right? Maybe look at just different weapon systems, different platforms, right? Because that to me, that's the future.
Yeah,
really, it's air systems. It's huge.
I think it's you got to think about, it's like, should you get that next high-end laser or that next flashlight, for Pete's sake, that you're just like, oh, that's the next model, or massively increase your capability by getting a $200 or $300 DJI drone and enhance your capability tenfold than what that smaller piece of equipment that you don't really need, but you kind of just want it to have the newest thing. But it's like that is going to be such a force multiplier for you and the group that you're in, that it's you can't get around that. And I think it's one of those things where this is something I'm doing right now, is I'm practicing. Like, I have an FPV, I've got the Avata, and I also got a Mini 3, and I'm just practicing with the Mini 3, just flying it all the time, navigating, flying off the screen, and then also, thinking outside the box of people, like thinking like, hey, if you're, let's just say, for example, Eric, I'm cut off and I got shot or I'm wounded and you guys can't get to me and I'm in need of medical supplies or whatever, like, you guys could attach medical supplies to the drone and fly it to me and drop it off, you know what I'm saying, without having to expose yourself to enemy fire. So like thinking outside the box on how can your team integrate this and not just like drop munitions or detonate things or target, but also maybe deliver life-saving equipment, almost maybe is like a small mule, where you're dropping off little speedballs to people that need stuff. And so kind of thinking outside the box on that perspective.
100%. So again, it's like you can play around with drones and press them into so many different roles. As you said, right? You can hit hit life-saving equipment, hit search and rescue, hit recovery even, right? Like, you can utilize drones to like not only just like drop munitions and drop life-saving equipment, but also as a ferrying system. You know, it's very, very cool.
I honestly could totally see people ferrying a couple of Zin cans over to their buddy who's fresh out. You know, some Zins. But yeah, well, cool. Well, I'm gonna thanks so much, Eric, for joining us for this conversation, and I'm gonna push back to Eric.
Thank you. Yeah.
So guys, as I was researching this episode and filming all this and putting it all together and editing it, the verse and passage that I wanted to really leave you guys with, because this subject is such a heavy subject, and honestly everything that is being learned about in drone warfare and all the lessons learned have literally cost thousands of lives. Like all of these lessons that we're learning here on this video cost thousands of lives to be able to garner those lessons and to be able to put them into our, you know, our toolbox to be able to become more prepared citizens. So I didn't take this subject very lightly. It was a very heavy subject to be able to get into, but I think a very necessary one for us. But an even heavier subject, and this is why I picked this passage, and this is why I picked this passage, is because I think it's so important for us to remember our true purpose and also the real enemy that's out there. You know, the world will tell you constantly that the enemy is in this country or this group or whatever, this nationality, and we have to kind of deflect all that noise and focus on the truth. And there is one truth, and that is the Bible. And the Bible will give you that source of truth in a society and in a world and in a time and age where it's so hard to really know what the truth is. You know, is it a lie? Is this a fake? Is this a deep fake? Is this AI? You know, is this someone's just opinion that's biased? And so it's so important for us to be able to rely on that one source of truth for guidance in this life as we walk this race. And so I go to Ephesians chapter 6 and I start in verse 10 just because I think it's so relevant to what this video was about in terms of kind of reorienting our compass on what really matters and the true enemy that's out there. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood. Emphasize that. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. That is the true enemy. So we have to, you know, how are you going to fight a war if you don't have any intel or know who your enemy is? Our enemy is in the spiritual realm. The demons and the dark forces that control this world, that run the society, that run all the different government systems and have its grip so tight on this earth, that is who we're fighting against. And here is what Ephesians says how we can prepare for them. Therefore, put on the full armor of God, so that when the evil day comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything to stand, stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, or the plate carrier of righteousness, with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, and pray in the Spirit on all occasions, with all kinds of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert, and always keep on praying for all the Lord's people. Pray also for me, that whenever I speak, words may be given me, so that I will fearlessly make known the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in chains. Pray that I may declare it fearlessly as I should. And this is Paul speaking, and he's actually in prison when he's writing this letter. And we should strive to be like Paul in this moment, an ambassador for God in the chains. Is what he was in prison. But he's saying, I will fearlessly carry on. I will continue to push on. And putting on that full armor of God is how we combat the evil forces. You know, the world will tell you and society will tell you, you got to hate your enemy and, you know, vengeance and revenge and all these types of things. Jesus told us to pray for our enemies. not to be walked all over, but to pray for them, to have a heart where we are looking to save people, to love on other people, to unite people. And so when we're constantly in prayer, we're constantly relying on the truth of the Bible, and also fearlessly, with courage, talking about it. It's sometimes nerve-wracking to be able to go up and witness to somebody or tell them about Jesus or tell them how God has changed your life. You don't have to sell them the truth. The truth will sell itself. And so, you know, whenever you're going through a hard time, just remember that we are fighting an evil force that cannot be seen in the spiritual realm. And the best thing that we can do is go back into prayer, almost like that shot timer goes off and you get your pistol drawer, you get that rifle up from the low ready and you get ready to crack off that shot. But same exact thing, when you go through a hard time, immediately go into prayer. Immediately bust out that Bible. You have the Bible app, you can actually download it right here, use the QR code, and it's free. And bust open the Bible and be like, Lord, speak to me. I need your encouragement. I need your peace. I need you to be able to work in my life. I'm going through these struggles. And guess what? You're not going through it alone. One, the community is here with you, but also God is there with you. Jesus is there through his Holy Spirit is there with you as you're going through all these trials and struggles, and just give it to him. And you'll find that sometimes the problems don't go away, but you have peace in the storm of that chapter of life. You will find that you will have a supernatural peace where almost like it's like I should be freaking out and I should be worried, but I'm not. And I feel like God is just giving me so much peace right now as I'm going through this, and I'm not even stressing, right? And so when we have on the armor of God, when we go and we love our fellow man, we have the belt of truth, the shield of faith, the helmet of salvation, all of these types of things to be able to combat the evil forces, there's nothing that Satan can do against you, nor anything that man can do against you, because God is with you. And in the end, we have a very short life. We have a very small amount of time to be able to dictate our eternity and what we will have in the next life, in the next eternity. So will you run your race well? You know, I want to stand before God one day and he will tell me, well done, my good and faithful servant. And I want him to say that to all of us. I want us to all run our races well. But that starts with you right now. What are you going to do to be able to begin running that race or continue running that race? And if you've been a closet Christian like I was always a coward about talking about my faith, no more. The love of the Lord is too strong for me to hold it within. He has fundamentally changed my life, and I hope that he can change yours. So I hope you guys got something out of this episode. If you're going through a hard time, email me at team@barrelhatchet.com. I'd love to pray for you. I will get through those prayer requests. They start to stack up in the inbox in the email, but that's the fastest way to get a hold of me, and I will get to you. So please have some patience with me. If you want to, you can comment in any of the videos below or any of the videos on the channel. And if you're a believer in this community, you're a Christian, look in the comment section and see who's going through a hard time, and just take one comment and pray for that person. Pray for that brother or that sister that might be going through a hard time that could use some help fighting in this spiritual fight. So guys, make sure you train to be an eternal asset. My name is Eric, and I'll see you on the next one.